Hey guys, welcome back to Colton's Critters. I'm Colton Smith, and in today's video, I'm going to give you 5 worst beginner saltwater fish and 5 better options that you've probably never heard of. Let's get into today's video. Before we get into the video, let's go ahead and feed these fish. Alrighty, first on the list is going to be leopard wrasses. Whether it be a chayote leopard wrasse, a blue star leopard wrasse, a green leopard wrasse, doesn't matter. Most leopard wrasses don't usually eat. Unlike my blue star in the back, we've been through several blue star leopard wrasses in order to get the one behind me that's actually eating. They're really hard to take care of and they're very finicky. They'll dig in your sand and they won't show up for months until later all of a sudden they'll pop out and they still won't be eating, or maybe they just die in the sand. They're one of the fish that, you know, they're super pretty and there's so many kinds of them that are really, really nice. And when you do get the one that's really nice, it's, you know, it looks super amazing. I have one in here. I get video clips of him later, but I wouldn't recommend it for a beginner reefer. A much better option would be a Christmas wrasse. They have super bright colors. They don't all look the same. They normally come with a green and red coloring, hence the name Christmas wrasse. They have really good personality. They do dig in the sand as well, but they are less finicky and most of the time they will eat. They'll eat pests off your corals, which is another good bonus. And yeah, overall, they're just a really good fish. Next on the list is going to be Anthias, specifically the deep water ones, but Anthias in general. Anthias have to eat around 3 to 4 times a day, or sometimes even more. The deep water ones, normally they're a little finicky to get to eat, like the fathead Anthias or the blotchy or blennies Anthias. They're pretty tough to get to eat. Blennies a little bit better, but most of the time they just don't survive. Anthias in general just have to eat a lot, which is hard to do when you're not always home, so you have to have an automatic feeder, which also makes your tank dirtier, meaning you have to do more water changes and whatnot. So for a beginner, I would stay away from Anthias. Instead, I think really cool one that most people haven't really heard of, monos. They're a brackish water species, so they can be in fresh or salt water. They're super cool. They eat like piranhas. They'll school just like an Anthias. And most people probably haven't really seen them in the hobby, which is pretty weird, but they're not expensive at all. No trouble with getting them to eat, and they'll eat on the spot. They're just super easy to take care of, and they're really, really cool. Next on the list is gonna be ruby red dragonettes or green mandarins. I can't tell you the number of times that customers come in and been like, hey, can I get a green mandarin or a ruby red dragonette? And I'm like, well, do you know that they only eat live food? Most of the time, they will only eat live food. Every now and then, you can get 1 or 2 of them and they'll eat frozen food, or you can train them to eat frozen. But most of the time, they only eat live pods. This makes them really hard to take care of because not all reef tanks have like a good stable of pods. This tank behind me is fairly old, so we have a good amount of pods in there. And even then, we had a mandarin and it ended up dying within a couple of months after it ate all the pods. So you have to be constantly adding pods to the tank, and for a beginner, it's just not a great option. A better option would be a starry blenny. Now they're not exactly like a mandarin or scooter bunny, but they do scoot across the bottom like a scooter bunny. and they'll actually eat algae in your tank. They have a really good personality. They have these like white speckles on them. They're pretty cool. They've been kind of hard to get in recently. We have a few big ones right now. Yeah, they're pretty cool fish. One of my first fish that I've ever had, actually. And I would run my finger across the glass and he would chase my finger. They just have a really, really good personality, and they'll help clean out the tank with algae. Next on the list is gonna be seahorses. Yes, I know seahorses are the cutest animal, I mean by far one of the cutest animals in the saltwater reef hobby, but they're very hard to get to eat. If you do get captive bred ones, they're a little bit easier, but it's just in general, you have to have a specific tank for them. So you have to have this tank set up just for seahorses. The flow has to be very low, and you have to have pretty much no other fish in the tank. The only other fish that could go with them would really be a scooter bunny or a mandrin. And that is because they aren't fast fish and they won't be chasing food because they pretty much only eat live pods. So you have to have a tank specifically designed for seahorses in order to keep them, making them a lot harder to take care of than, you know, let's say some of the fish behind me here. A great other option would be pipefish. They look very similar to a seahorse in a way. They're in the same family. They can withstand a little bit more water flow. And most of the time you can get them to eat frozen. There's a lot of captive bred species now. And most of them eat frozen pretty well, even the wild ones. They have different colors and different varieties. We have a couple different ones right now, but they're pretty cool. I think that would be a really good, better option. The next on the list is gonna be a powder blue or powder brown. Powder blue and powder brown are really, really pretty fish. There's one behind me in here. I'm sure you've seen him go back a few times. He's blue and white, and he's got a yellow tail. They almost look fake, which is so pretty. There's one right there. I don't know if you can see him. Now, powder blues, the problem with them is they just carry a lot of diseases, mainly ick. They will carry ick like there's no tomorrow. They always get ick. Now, you can counteract that with a UV sterilizer, which I have up here somewhere. I don't know if you can see it. That's it right there. But that's just more equipment that you have to have on the tank. And even then, it doesn't get rid of all of the ick, and you have to keep him really well fed, and you have to constantly be dipping him and make sure that he is good to go. I've had this guy for about 5 years, so he's pretty good now, but it's just a not very good beginner Tang. Instead, I would get a Lieutenant Tang, which is actually really, really pretty Tang. Most people haven't really seen before. I'll show a few clips of him up in the screen right now. They're super, super pretty, and when they get bigger, they're even prettier. The babies have these little blue speckles on them, and then when they get bigger, they get a really, really, really nice coloring. Last but not least, and one of my favorite fish in the saltwater hobby is an orange spot filefish. So, 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 so pretty. They're super passive. They just have this really bright blue and orange coloring. Really get your eyes to focus on them and see them out of all of the fish in the store. They're just super, super gorgeous fish. However, they are very, very finicky. In the wild, they only eat SPS coral, which is these spikier corals right here. They only eat the polyps off the SPS. So in the hobby, you have to try to transition them into mysis and get them to eat mysis, which can be very difficult and very hard to do. I wouldn't want to, want you to get that and then it dying because you don't have SPS to feed it, because that's not a normal thing that you feed your fish. They're super, super gorgeous. They also need low flow and not very many aggressive fish with them because they're very slow. A better option would be a tassel filefish. They're also pretty gorgeous. Their coloring isn't as nice. It's white and black, but they have these really, really whack tassels on them, hence the name tassel filefish, which is really, really cool and something you've probably never seen before in this hobby. Alrighty guys, that's gonna wrap up today's video. Hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, let me know down in the comments below. Also, let me know if you want to see more of the tank behind me here. I'll go into more depth on the fish and coral. And yeah, till next time, peace.